Hello and welcome to this edition of my Clarendon Chronicles podcast. And my guest today is AYSHA IQBAL. AYSHA is the founder of Wize Communications, a media and communications coaching and training business that delivers powerful public speaking workshops, coaching and masterclasses in the UK and internationally. AYSHA is a communications expert, creating Wize after a successful 18-year career in journalism. She was headhunted by the BBC to become one of the main news anchors for BBC Southwest and has also worked as a news anchor and reporter for ITV, in addition to working with organisations such as BBC 5 Live, BBC London and LBC London. She is a Sony Gold Award winner and a TEDx host and speaker in 2023 and 2024. AYSHA believes communication and confidence are two of the most powerful skills that we possess. Mastering these two skills combined has the ability to catapult career opportunities and lead to people fulfilling their aims, whatever their background and educational experience. And AYSHA particularly empowers and coaches business leaders and young people to maximize their communication skills. At Wize, AYSHA trains her clients to master their public speaking, perfect their business and sales pitches, and refine their interpersonal communication at every level. She shows her clients how to engage with media impactfully and perfect their on-screen presence. As an in-demand communications expert backed up by her stellar media career, AYSHA delivers her training to leading corporations, charities, and educational institutions, and has featured in many national and international publications. AYSHA, welcome to my podcast, and thank you so much for agreeing to be my guest. It's very much appreciated. And as an individual myself, with precious little training in media and communications, but having had conversely a lot of responsibility in this area, I'm really looking forward to finding out what I've actually been doing wrong in communications for the whole of my career. AYSHA, welcome to my podcast.
Lovely to join you, Jeremy. Thank you for the invitation.
Really looking forward to it as well. Aisha, the world of media and communications can perhaps seem to observers like me as quite a glamorous and exciting industry in which to work, but I imagine the reality might be quite different. So can I start right there, Aisha? In comparison to the perhaps serene images we see on our screens and hear on the radio, what is it actually like behind the scenes in, for example, your earlier role as a news anchor for the BBC?
Well, Jeremy, a lot of people are always fascinated by the fact that I worked in the media for so many years, especially that my work in TV is always the subject that comes up a lot. This isn't definitely what you're just mentioning there is something that people are usually very curious about. Was it glamorous? Yes, there is a degree of glamour in it for sure. I'm not going to deny that. When you're in television, it's lights, camera, action, it's makeup.
Mm.
It is all these exciting guests that you are speaking to as well. But there is a lot of hard work for sure. There's deadlines that you have to be working towards. There's immense pressure behind the scenes. There is a lot of stress as well. So when you're actually working within the sector, I think you're more immersed in the fact that there's a lot of hard work and you've got deadlines to meet than you are in the glamorous aspect of it. So, but obviously when you're looking at it visually, when you're watching television or you're listening to the radio, you do have the illusion that it's just all glam. But no, it's hard work, definitely, and some glamour too.
Yeah, and presumably a whole host of things that you can see happening that we can't, such as the whole production team behind the camera. And presumably you've got, I mean, an amateur at podcasting, and I'm thinking this is quite difficult, but presumably you've got people speaking in your ears, you've got people directing you, everything going on, presumably.
Yeah, for example, when you're watching somebody and they're reading the news at that same time, what's actually taking place is the news anchor has an earpiece in their ear. They have scripts in front of them. They have an auto cue that they're reading, and there's a lot going on in the background. So they're having to really sort of, when I would be reading the news, I would be you know, the gallery would be in my ear the whole time. I'd be having countdowns. I'd be aware of, you know, what was actually taking place in the production team, and you're also thinking about timing as well, because you're being, you know, it's counting down to specific 30 seconds, 20 seconds. So you've got so much actually taking place technically, numerically, that you're considering at the same time, as you know, looking calm and serene and authoritative and presenting the news. So yeah, it's there's a whole production aspect to it, as well as a presentation aspect, and you're always juggling the two as a news anchor and when you're reporting as well.
It sounds far too complex for me, I know already. And I'm making an assumption, Aisha, that getting into media and communications, as you said, can be seen to be quite glamorous, but I imagine it must be incredibly difficult as a sector to enter. How did you start? How did you manage to progress and excel in your career in media and communications?
So yeah, absolutely. You're completely right there. It is a very tough industry to get into. I think it's one of the toughest industries to get into.
Mm.
And for myself, I came from, you know, an Asian background. My parents were immigrants from Pakistan. And there was no one who ever encouraged you to work in the media sector or to go
Mhm.
into it. But for me, it was something that I just felt I wanted to do. I had no guidance, no direction. I went to state school. There was no one encouraging you or believing that you would make it into television, you know, onto TV. So for me, it was really that I think that's why I'm so big on self-belief and confidence and good communication, because I think that's what it came down to for me. I had the belief that I wanted to do something. I had the willpower that I was going to continue with it. I was confident in myself. So although I didn't have a clear roadmap on how to navigate myself into the sector, I did have determination, and I found my way. And the way I did it was, at that time, you didn't have ChatGPT, you didn't have Google. I just used to read magazines at the time and see, oh, what did that, how did that presenter and news anchor, what was their route? And things I picked up along the way, I just brought them all together. And I realized the route into this industry would be firstly, you know, via print, and then into radio, and then I would go through it. So although I had a vague idea of how I was going to go into the sector, I think it all came down ultimately to me being very believing in myself, having a healthy level of confidence and conviction and strong communication skills. That's why I'm so strong on these three being so important for everyone and anyone, because I believe it can break down so many barriers and obstacles in life and help you go to wherever you want to go. That's how potent and powerful these skills can be.
And really interesting, you mentioned the determination there, and having done quite a number of these podcasts now, Aisha, the idea of mindset and determination, I think, has come up in virtually all of them when I ask my guests around how did you get it to work? How did you progress from the troughs to the peaks? And that issue of mindset always comes up. So fantastic to hear that in terms of your progress as well. And Aisha, you've had 18 years in journalism, and now your own business of Wize Communications. You will be coming across many individuals very capable in their own fields of, whether it be industry or education or politics, whatever sector that they are in, very capable people, but not necessarily great at communicating. Um, can you share with us from your perspective, looking to people like me, I suppose, what damage does it do if, as leaders in the corporate world, for example, we don't invest time in this area?
I really believe that communication is one of the most critical tools you can possess, and in your career at any level, you know, whether you are starting out or whether you're in leadership or you're embracing leadership. You know, if you don't communicate effectively, you know, then people will not respond to you in the right way. The way that people respond and react to you is all based on how you are communicating with them. How you act is how people will react to you. It's literally as swift and as fast as that. The impact is immediate. Your behavior and your communication is going to determine the world that you create around you, in terms of the interactions and the consequences of that. So, you know, you need to really work on develop your communication so you have it effective, for the role that you're in. And you know, if you're going into if you're in leadership or you're going into leadership, then you need to ensure that you have the right communication for that position, so that you can lead your team in the right way, so that they're going to be receptive to you, and then you can ultimately achieve the goals that you wish to achieve. If you don't have strong communication skills or effective communication skills, then it's going to definitely be one limiting aspect for you in your work, in your role, and it will create obstacles along the way, and inevitably impact the outcome.
Yeah, I completely concur with that. And you and I got to know each other through, I think, shared interest in cricket, actually. And that kind of communication, even I'm fascinated by leadership in both sport and business and the crossovers between them. And one of the quotes that I use when I deliver some executive education is I picked up on something from Sir Clive Woodward, the World Cup winning rugby union coach who does management and leadership forums now. And one of the things that he says was, as you quite rightly said then, for every action, there's a reaction, and everything you say as a leader has some kind of reaction somewhere. And to think about it like that as a leader, in that everything that we say, somebody's going to form a conclusion or have a reaction to that one way or the other. So I absolutely agree. Incredibly important to get this right. And some of us aren't very good at it either. And so what was the driver for you, Aisha, to set up and pursue your own media and communications company and business at Wize?
So, I took some time out after a number of years, obviously in broadcasting and journalism, and then it was just a decision of what I wanted to do at the stage of my life. And I thought that, for me, my family are very entrepreneurial and business minded, and also we have that aspect where we're very people's people, and
Mm.
I always wanted to do something of my own, even when I was working within the media sector at the time. So this was a good opportunity for me, and bringing together my skill set, my capabilities, and my knowledge, it sort of, in fruition, ideologically came into fruition. Wize Communications, I could deliver training in all these areas, and also, later on, hopefully also branching out into fresh areas. So I believe this is my foundation, and this is a start, but there are other things I will move into later. But currently, the focus purely is at the moment on training individuals and companies in the areas of public speaking and presentation skills, how to do that impactfully and effectively, how to be an awesome communicator, how to take your communication skills to the very next level, and also media skills. How can you be, how do you deliver impactful media interviews, and how do you handle, the media in a crisis situation? So currently it's all presentation skills and public speaking, media and communications, but I will hopefully going forward also evolve into fresh areas and ideas.
I think what you say there is really important, because I've done a very limited amount of media training, and we are probably, I suppose, we're generally speaking, we might be okay at presenting at a conference or an away day or a town hall, and maybe we get used to that. But the elements that I received a little bit of training on and made me realize how important it is was around exactly as you describe, Aisha, that crisis time, because that's the time when you're likely to have TV crews, radio crews, having to do interviews with challenging questions around events that are probably unwelcome. So bad news, unwelcome events, dealing with issues. And again, I use a couple of really poor examples in some of my executive education, people giving interviews as CEOs and just completely saying the wrong thing. Um, so Aisha, as I mentioned into the introduction, in the corporate world, many of us without real formal training and guidance. And I was a former PLC CFO, exactly in that category. Little bit of training, not that much really. And then the business got bigger. We did more and more, and we did more financial journalism challenges, and we did presentations, did a few radio shows, TV, a little bit of TV. And so for our listeners, maybe falling into a bit of the same category as me, or in the future maybe in that situation, what are some of the mistakes that people like me make as leaders? What mistakes do we make, and are there some things we can instantly rectify using your advice, Aisha?
In a crisis situation?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that often companies do when there's a crisis, they want to kind of hide away and not engage with the media, and that's a very
Mm,
natural reaction. But the danger there is we're living in very media-focused times and social
mm,
media-focused times. If there is a crisis, you can't do that anymore, because then the media and journalists will, silence doesn't speak well in these situations. So you do really need to
mm,
have a crisis plan in place if you're a business, because if we're living in very sensitive times also, and it's very easy for any situation to arise at any time, and for a reporter to contact you and want to interview you, and you don't know, if you don't have a plan in place, that is not a good thing. So really, I mean, in our current times, we're living in times of transparency as well on social media. So the main communications advice in terms of media interviews and crisis situations is to really be transparent. You need to accept responsibility. You need to be accountable. You need to, be able to apologize, and you need to have an action plan in place that you can discuss about how you're going to rectify the issue. So it's very
mm,
clear and transparent, the advice on how to handle crises situations for businesses today. It's really about
mm.
being, accepting what's happened, and owning up to it, but also being accountable that you are going to make a change and you have a plan in place, because people can see through the lies nowadays, and there isn't anywhere to hide anymore. Everything is out there. So the best thing that you can do is just be honest and have integrity. That's what people want to hear today, and that is the media advice at the moment.
Honesty and integrity. I could ask you some questions, but I'm apolitical on these things. So I mean, I guess I should ask you a question there. I mean, it feels a real challenge. The more media work that I did, um, and for people on any area of the political spectrum, I did actually find myself thinking these people are actually very skilled from whatever party they're involved with, to have to come onto national TV and be grilled by journalists and at least give some kind of coherent answer time and again must be a real challenge. And presumably they've all been trained, and they use your advice and your guidance to be able to get to that stage, presumably.
Yeah, so you were talking about politicians here, right?
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. Politicians are always definitely very media trained, but we also have to
Mm,
remember they have a very high level of IQ. Okay,
yeah.
so they're very fast, swift, sharp minds. With some media training, are able to handle very intense encounters on air. I specifically don't focus on politicians. That is not an
Mm,
area that I like to work in. I have more integrity and honesty at heart to want to be training in that. For me, it's all no, this is not an area that I have chosen to actually work
yeah.
in. Mine is all about, working with individuals who genuinely want to, have, deliver an effective media interview, and also in a situation where there is a crisis hitting their company, know how to deal effectively with the media. I'm not big on things, it's not something I like to train, is, the political hierarchy of the country.
It's a real challenge, I guess. But so let's move it back to, I suppose, my world, and you focus on education as well. And without wishing to oversimplify all of your years of experience and skills, what are just in a general situation when we're communicating, whether we're doing not necessarily a crisis situation now, but when we're communicating with colleagues, when we're doing presentations to investors, and what are some of the things that leaders in business can do instantly to improve our presentational and communication performance?
So we talk speaking more when we're delivering a public
Yes, yes, I think so. Yes.
when we're delivering a public presentation to an audience
Yes,
and our team.
absolutely.
I mean, the first thing is also, when I deliver a public speaking training, for example, and when we're doing presentations, it's really important to sort of know who your audience is. That
Mm,
is always really crucial, to spend some time, really understanding your team. If you're speaking with your team in house, or if you're delivering a presentation externally, to know who you're going to be communicating with. Also, I talk a lot about engaging your audience from the outset. That's always important. So at the beginning of your presentation, the first 10 seconds are the most important, essential moments for engagement. You must engage because people's attention spans are very limited nowadays. And also, you know, nowadays it's about keeping people's attention during your presentation and being able to persuade. And I'm very big on persuading with honesty and truth, because I'm not one who encourages the other way, because you can still persuade and still keep your integrity, in the sense that, for example, persuasive techniques are, you can tell stories but keep them honest, keep them real, right? That's a very engaging way to put your point across to your audience, your teams. You can also, for example, metaphors are one of my favorite. Analogies are always very impactful. Using strong facts and figures are brilliant, you know, from the latest research. And you know, these are just some of the techniques that I teach when I'm delivering my presentation training to teams and leaders.
Fantastic advice, Aisha. I'm trying to think whether I ever used some of those. As a former CFO, I was in the position usually of being the person who presented after lunch if it was an away day. It was the time when everybody miraculously had phone calls coming in that they absolutely had to take. So I tried to develop my own style, as you say, actually, around metaphors, storytelling, visuals, grabbing the audience, facts and figures, because in general, I just had to accept that people weren't that interested in the financials of the organization. So how could I make it more interesting? I remember one of the things that we did, one of my very first roles, and I don't claim any credit for this. I think we did have some media help on this, but we actually were a business that produced crisp packets, for instance. We did printing and packaging. And one of the things we did when we were presenting to become a public company was we actually worked out that if you laid all of the crisp packets that we produced end to end in a year, we would go around the world twice, something like that. So is that the kind of
Yeah.
thing that you're talking about, Aisha? So we used that and said, you know, we go round the world twice with our crisp packet, something like that, if I remember rightly. And so metaphors, storytelling, facts, figures, visuals, honesty, and integrity are the
Yeah,
things
but
that I'm taking away from this.
absolutely, because as a CFO, you would have been, you know, delivering presentations with a lot of financial content and financial information. And when we're in industries such as tech or finance, when we're in industries that are sometimes perceived as being that can have an information overload, then there are ways that definitely you can make that more engaging. And so, for example, even, you know, when it comes to financial information, a lot of people in the past would put, or even today, it will put up too much information on screen when it comes to data and you know, data and digits and beyond. And the truth is that most people's attention spans cannot grasp that level of information. So you need to understand, and the rules are to, you know, it's really important to simplify. Simplification is so key when it comes to engagement in communication and present, you know, and when public speaking. So infographics are very good to use, for example, just simple pie charts, bar graphs. These break down complex information and simplify it so audiences can digest it a lot you know, more quickly, and you ultimately achieve your objective, which is to relay information. So today, the focus is more on, you know, dialogue as opposed to monologue. In the past, it was more about, you know, the ego, and we're speaking to an audience and we're thinking about ourselves. Now it's about, okay, can we achieve the objective? Can we, you know, it's really about achieving your objective and ensuring that your audience are also able to absorb the information at the same time.
Dialogue, not monologue. Great takeaway.
Dialogue,
Thank
not
you
more.
for that.
Yeah, if you can think of it
Yeah.
more, and no need to speak to them, your audiences or your teams in a way that's authoritative anymore. It's more about having the ability to have your authority within you that comes with your role, but also being personable and conversational, because conversational style and a personable style is what connects us to other people. You know, authority, if you want to be the boss or you want to always be perceived, you know, then that's going to create a disconnect. But if you want to connect with people, people are emotional beings first and foremost. And if you're conversational and you're personable, you warm hearts and you connect with people a lot quicker. You can meet a stranger and you can not get to know them for months on end, but you could get to know them very quick if you have a conversational tone, a more friendly tone, if you're able to, you know, understand who they are and reach their level sooner rather than later. It's just a law of connection.
That's just such terrific advice for anybody in terms of presenting too much data. I despair sometimes when, in my role as a non-exec director, and I won't pinpoint any in particular company, but being presented with too much data is just a complete switch off for me. You mentioned there, Aisha, in and also having done my own research into your communication skills, and you work with young people. And for younger people in particular, this must be quite daunting. I mean, I was thrown into public speaking by my headmaster at primary school, and I had to deliver reports about the football team and the cricket team and things like that. So for me, it was actually fine. I never had a problem with public speaking ever, really. But for younger people on their journeys, it must be actually really challenging. How do you work with young people to help them? As you say, so difficult for young people. How do you help them with communication and training to make themselves heard better with the younger generation?
Yeah, so many young people today lack confidence, especially in this social media age where they're hiding
Mm,
behind their screens. They don't know. And so when it comes to public speaking, it's terrifying for them.
mm,
And, you know, but the thing is, what really simplifies the process, I believe, is, you know, and what I see time and time again is when when they understand the formula. There is a formula to public speaking, and knowledge is builds confidence. Knowledge gives you clarity. And so when I'm working with young people or, you know, business people, when I show them, you know, the formula and the template and, you know, to how to put together a good, effective presentation and public speech, that takes away about 60% of the confusion
mm,
and brings
mm.
clarity and a lot of the anxiety. Once you have that, then, you know, then it's all about developing your, you know, your effective ways to enhance your voice and your vocal range, and also how to use your body language impactfully and effectively. So, you know, whether it's young people, whether I'm working with businesses, organizations, it's always really about ensuring they have clarity about how public speaking actually works, how to structure it, what the formula is, and then understanding what makes for impactful engagement through your voice and through your body language. And when you bring all these elements together, and also when I work with you know, clients, it's very much focusing on their natural skill sets and empowering them to bring that into the fold. When you bring all these together, there's, you know, it makes a major impact, and it really takes skills to the very next level.
That there were some real gems in there, I think, Aisha, and nobody's ever talked to me about quite a lot of the things that you've said there. So mine, like quite a lot of my career actually, has been do it by sinking or swimming, and some people
No,
sink, don't they? And as I say, as you say, public speaking and communication is so important in terms of leadership with younger people, um, and I you know, really interested to hear that your business is set up to help people get better at that in such a visible and important area of trying to get on in life. It's fantastic. So um
absolutely. I think really, if you want to really, if you want to have a peaceful life, a happy life,
mm,
and a successful life, then I think it's really essential to really refine your communication. That is a core ingredient of it. And so many people don't actually reach that point till the end of their lives. And, you know, I always use the example of my parents, and I see the difference from my parents. My mum was an incredible communicator who had always wanted to work in Bollywood when she was younger, back in the days. And then she was married to my dad, who was a very introverted pharmacist. And I saw both their worlds being very different, just
mm,
purely what it came down to ultimately. I'm sure there were many other levels there, but it ultimately came down to the way they engage with the world. So my mum had a wonderful external life where she was, you know, has friends contact, you know, phoning our home all the time. We had events and functions, and my dad was always a lot more skeptical about the world, and because of the beliefs they harbored and then the way they, you know, communicated as a result of that, it meant that they had completely different lives. And I would say that, because just purely down to that as being a great example for me, was that your communication will define your life. It will shape your world. So it's best if you can master those skills earlier on than later on, to really maximize your life, your career, and your communication and interactions.
It's amazing, and I think you've highlighted some of the things that as you've been speaking there, I've been thinking. I remember over 30 or 35 years, around about that now, of going to presentations, lunches, dinners, conferences, events, and I can still remember vividly the really, really good communicators. I mean, for example, there used to be a conference up in the Yorkshire area in the UK area every year or so, where lots of business leaders got together, and they had some incredible speakers each year. And so, for example, one of the speakers one year was Bill Clinton, and
Yeah.
he came on. He was about, I think it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and of course it was absolutely packed. He was an amazingly charismatic communicator. Not even going to go into his party politics or whatever else has happened in his career and
Yeah,
life,
absolutely. But as
but
a communicator
as a
yourself.
as a communicator, he was and I remember coming home, speaking to my family and saying, "You never guess who I've just listened to in what is effectively a cowshed in the Yorkshire area." It's at the show, what's called the showground in the Harrogate, Yorkshire area. But the way he introduced himself to the stage, the way he did his speech and engaged, and then actually engaged with the audience afterwards by shaking hands and being very
Yeah.
open. And then even the following day, he strode round the local town, meeting people and going to coffee shops. And as a communicator, I just came away from that thinking it was amazing to see, really was. When people do it
Yeah.
right, you remember it, don't
Yeah.
you?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's Bill Clinton and all good communicators out there, and those that we, who pack a punch and make an impression, and people that
Mm,
we remember are always those who have the emotional intelligence and have an ability to be personable,
mm,
regardless of their position or regardless of their intellect or their prowess. It's always, that emotional intelligence, the ability to be personable and connect with others is what warms a human heart, and it always has, and it always will. And that's why we remember certain people, and that's why we forget others. It all comes down to that personal touch. And Bill Clinton has that in abundance, and that's what gives him that charm and that
mm.
X factor.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. You've had an exceptional career in journalism, and you're running Wize Communications, and you've done uh, TED host speaking. What's
Mm.
next for Wize Communications, and how do we find out more about Wize Communications, and how do we contact you, Aisha?
Yeah. So what's next for me is, at the moment, I'm focused on my workshops and my coaching and my training. And that's keeping me very busy at the moment. Going forward, who knows, perhaps my own podcast at some point, and doing, more with regards to social media as well. And, well, let's see, there are opportunities also opening up in other countries. Just recently got contacted by businesses in Dubai and Saudi to perhaps take my training abroad as well. So I'm just really considering all possibilities at the moment. But yeah, absolutely. If anyone's currently focusing on enhancing their public speaking and presentation skills, they want to maximize their communication or really master their media skills, then the way to contact me is via email, which is contact@wisecomms.co.uk. There's also my website, which is Wize Communications, which is currently online as well. So yeah, absolutely. Or just DM me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. I'm now really pleased to be able to speak to you about all of those things. And I think it's been an absolute 30-minute masterclass there that I'm thinking all of, like I said in the introduction, actually, Aisha, all of the things which I probably wish I'd have known about 35 years ago, I should have put into practice, and maybe I would have been a little bit better. So yeah,
That's the
great to
thing,
know
isn't it?
how. to get in contact with you. Again, it's Wize Communications, Wize with a Z. For
It
anybody
is. It's a
who's
modern take on wisdom, right? It has to be wisdom has to be put into
absolutely.
the new age.
Yeah, absolutely. So Wize Communications with a Z, for anybody who is listening. Aisha, thank you so much for your time today. I think my takeaways are numerous from this in terms of some of those immediately accessible tips and guidance that we can use to make our presentations and our communications and our media management considerably better. I've really enjoyed hearing firsthand how to get better, even at my age. A critical element, as you've described, of being any kind of leader in any sector. So thank you again for being my guest today, Aisha.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, Jeremy.
Thank you. And I look forward to speaking to you in due course on various things going forward. So thank you again,
Absolutely.
Aisha. Been
Thank
my
you.
pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you again for being my guest on the Clarendon Chronicles podcast. Until the next
Thank
one,
you.
bye for now.